I heard the deer before I saw it, and that's what scared me the most, because deer don't make sounds like that. This happened in the fall of 2019 at my house in rural Kentucky. I'd lived there for 3 years and had seen plenty of deer on my property. They were so common I barely paid attention to them anymore, until that night. The wrong sound. It was around 9 p.m. and I was in my kitchen doing dishes. The window above the sink looks out onto my backyard, which backs up to about 40 acres of woods. I had the window cracked open because it was a nice evening, cool but not cold, with that crisp autumn smell in the air. That's when I heard it. A scream, not like a person screaming for help. More like someone trying to scream but getting the sound wrong. Like they were imitating a scream but had never actually heard one before. It was high-pitched and drawn out, but there was something off about the tone. Something that made my skin crawl. I froze, my hands still in the soapy water, and listened. The sound came again. Closer this time. It was coming from my backyard. I dried my hands and walked slowly to the back door. My porch light was on, casting a yellow glow across the grass and illuminating the tree line about 50 feet away. And standing right at the edge of the light was a deer. At least that's what I told myself it was. It was facing my house, completely motionless. Its head was lowered, like it was staring at the ground, but I could feel it watching me through the glass door. I stood there, hand on the doorknob, waiting for it to move. Then it made the sound again. That wrong, terrible scream. The sound was definitely coming from the deer. I could see its body tense as the noise came out, but its mouth stayed closed, or maybe slightly open. I couldn't tell from that distance. But deer don't scream. They grunt, they snort, they make huffing sounds when they're alarmed. They don't scream like humans. I watched it for another minute, my heart pounding. The deer still hadn't moved. It just stood there at the edge of the light, its body rigid and unnatural. Then, very slowly, it lifted its head, and I saw its neck. It was too long, way too long. When it raised its head, the neck just kept going up, 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 until its head was at least a foot higher than any deer's head should be. My hand slipped off the doorknob. The deer, the thing, tilted its head to the side. Not like a curious dog. Like something trying to get a better angle to see me through the door. Then it opened its mouth. Its jaw didn't just drop open. It unhinged, like a snake's. And inside I could see rows of flat, blunt teeth that looked almost human. It made that screaming sound again, louder this time, and I stumbled backward into my kitchen. I grabbed my phone and called my neighbor, a guy who lived about half a mile down the road. He was a hunter, someone who knew the woods. "There's something in my backyard," I said. "Can you come over? I'll be there in 5 minutes." I stayed inside with the lights off, peeking through the curtains. The thing was still there, still standing in the same spot, still watching my house. When my neighbor pulled up, his headlights swept across the backyard. The thing was gone. We found tracks in the soft dirt near the tree line, hoof prints, definitely from a deer, but they were deep, too deep, like the animal weighed way more than it should have. "Probably just a buck," my neighbor said. "Big one from the looks of it." I didn't argue with him, but I knew what I'd seen. I started researching online the next day and found dozens of stories just like mine. People hearing deer make human sounds, screaming, laughing, crying. Deer with necks that stretched impossibly long. Deer that watched people with an intelligence that felt wrong. Not deer. I still see regular deer on my property all the time. but I can tell the difference now. Real deer don't watch you. They don't stand still when you approach. They don't make sounds that belong in a horror movie, and they definitely don't make you feel like prey. I keep my windows closed at night now, and I don't go outside after dark anymore, because I know it's still out there, and sometimes, late at night, I can hear it screaming in the woods. I pulled over on the side of the highway because I was falling asleep at the wheel. What I saw next made sure I stayed awake for the rest of the night. This happened in 2018 when I was in college in South Dakota. I'd been to the ER late at night and was driving back to campus, about 20 miles through rural, empty roads. Too many joints. It was almost 2 a.m. I'd been at the ER for some pain and got out way later than I expected. The drive back was dark and quiet, and I could feel myself nodding off. So I pulled over onto the shoulder, almost into the grass, to rest my eyes for a minute. I turned off the car, leaned my seat back, and took a few deep breaths. The area was completely rural, no houses, no streetlights, just flat farmland and the occasional tree. After a minute or two, I saw movement in my peripheral vision. I sat up and looked to my right. A small group of deer, maybe 4 or 5, was crossing the road ahead of me. They moved slowly, single file, like they weren't in any hurry. I smiled. It was kind of peaceful. A nice little nature moment before I finished my drive. But then I noticed one of them. It was at the back of the group, and its back legs looked wrong. At first, I thought they were broken. The legs were bent at weird angles, like the joints were in the wrong places, or like there were too many joints. The deer was moving, but not in a smooth, graceful way like the others. It was jerky, hopping, almost mechanical. Poor thing, I thought. How is it even walking with broken legs? But then my brain caught up. An animal with broken legs can't walk. I leaned forward, squinting through the windshield to get a better look. The deer was still moving, and the more I watched, the more details I noticed. Its neck was too long, way too long. It stretched up awkwardly, like it had been pulled. Its ears were too long too, and its legs, God, its legs. They didn't just look broken. They looked inverted, like the knees were bending backward. The other deer in the group didn't seem bothered by it. They just kept walking, calm and unbothered. But every nerve in my body was screaming at me that something was wrong. Then the thing turned its head toward me, not all the way, just enough that I could see the side of its face in the dim light. And I swear I saw its mouth. Deer don't have visible teeth, but this thing did. I could see them, long, flat, almost human-like, jutting out slightly from its jaw. That's when the fear hit me. Not the rational kind of fear, like being scared of a car accident or getting sick. This was primal, instinctive, the kind of fear that lives in your DNA and tells you, without question, that you're looking at something dangerous. The group finally finished crossing the road and disappeared into the field on the other side, but I couldn't move. I just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding in my chest. After what felt like forever, I turned the car back on and pulled onto the highway. I drove the rest of the way back to campus, going at least 20 miles over the speed limit. I didn't care if I got pulled over. I just needed to get as far away from that thing as possible. When I got to my dorm, I ran across campus. I don't know why. It wasn't chasing me, but I felt like I just escaped something, like I'd been inches away from death. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my room with all the lights on, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But I know what I saw. Later, I started researching online and found stories about not deer. People describing the exact same thing I'd seen. Deer with too many joints. Deer with legs that bend the wrong way. Deer that move in jerky, unnatural motions. And everyone says the same thing. When you see one, you know. You don't have to be a wildlife expert. You don't have to spend time analyzing it. Your brain just knows, on a deep, instinctive level, that what you're looking at isn't right. Some people think not deer are regular deer with diseases like chronic wasting disease, which causes neurological problems. But I don't think that's what I saw. CWD makes deer act confused and disoriented. It doesn't give them extra joints. It doesn't make their necks impossibly long. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't a sick deer. It was something else. Something pretending to be a deer. I was looking for holly berries in the woods with my brother when I saw what I thought was a baby deer. I squatted down to watch it because I didn't want to scare it away. Then it stood up, and I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. This was in North Carolina when I was a teenager, and it's something I'll never forget. It stood up. I grew up in North Carolina, and deer were everywhere on our property. My family hunted, and I'd seen hundreds of deer in my life. I knew how they moved, how they acted, what they looked like. So when I saw the little shape crouched in the underbrush that day, I assumed it was a fawn. It was late afternoon, and my brother and I were out in the woods behind our house looking for holly berries. He'd run back to the trail to grab a bucket because his hands were full, and I was alone. That's when I saw it. Maybe 15 or 20 feet away, partially hidden by bushes, was a small deer. Or what I thought was a small deer. It was crouched down low, its head bent toward the ground like it was grazing or resting. I got excited. I'd always loved animals, and seeing a baby deer up close was a rare treat. So I squatted down and went completely quiet, not wanting to startle it. For a few seconds, everything was peaceful. I watched it, admiring how still and calm it was. Then it moved, but not like a deer. It stood up. Not on all fours, on two legs, like a person. My heart stopped. The thing was tall, taller than me, even though I'd thought it was a fawn just seconds ago. Its body was thin and elongated, with limbs that seemed too long for its frame. And its legs were bent wrong. Not forward like a human's, not exactly backward like a deer's. Somewhere in between, like the joints didn't belong. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The thing turned its head toward me. That's when I saw its face. It had too many eyes. Not just two, not even three. Multiple pairs of dark, shiny orbs clustered across its face in places where eyes shouldn't be. They reflected the fading sunlight like a spider's eyes, all watching me at once. And its legs, I could see them clearly now, were far too long. And they bent in the middle like they had an extra joint. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Then, just as suddenly as it had stood up, it bolted. It didn't run on four legs. It ran on two, in a jerky, unnatural gait, crashing through the underbrush and disappearing into the trees. My brother came running back a few seconds later, holding the bucket. "Did you see that?" I gasped. "See what?" The thing. The deer. It stood up. It had... What are you talking about? I tried to explain, but the words didn't make sense even to me. A deer that stood like a person. A deer with too many eyes. A deer with legs that bent in the wrong places. He thought I was messing with him, but I knew what I'd seen. When we got home, I tried to put it out of my mind. I told myself it was a trick of the light. A deer with a weird posture. Maybe a sick deer. Maybe I'd imagined the eyes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been in danger, that if I'd moved, if I'd made a sound, it would have come for me. Years later, I found out about not deer. People online were sharing stories just like mine. Deer that stood on two legs, deer with too many eyes, deer with legs that had extra joints or bent in unnatural ways. And everyone described the same reaction I'd had: paralysis, pure instinctive terror. Your brain knows when something is wrong, even if you can't articulate it, even if it doesn't make logical sense. When you see a not deer, your body reacts before your mind can catch up. Because you're not looking at an animal, you're looking at something that's pretending to be an animal, and it's not very good at it. Some people think not deer are animals with diseases or birth defects, and maybe some of them are. But what I saw wasn't sick. It wasn't confused. It wasn't afraid. It was aware. It was watching me, and when I noticed it, it ran, like it knew it had been caught. I don't go into those woods anymore. Not alone. Not at dusk. And definitely not without telling someone where I'm going, because I know what's out there, and I know it's still watching. My grandfather was the one who noticed it first. We were driving home late at night when he suddenly said, "That deer is watching us." I looked where he was pointing and saw what looked like a normal deer standing by the side of the road. But then I realized it was facing us, and its eyes were in the front of its head. This happened when I was about 10 years old, and I still remember it clearly. If you like this kind of stuff, mangle the like button. It was watching us. Most of my family lives in St. Louis, Missouri. When I was a kid, my grandfather loved taking us bowling. That night, we'd stayed late at the alley and were driving back through some rural areas outside the city. It was probably around 11 p.m. The highway was empty, just us, the darkness, and the occasional streetlight. I was in the back seat, half asleep, when my grandfather's voice cut through the quiet. "Look at that deer." His tone wasn't excited or casual. It was tense, careful, like he was trying not to startle something dangerous. I sat up and looked out the windshield. There, maybe 30 feet ahead on the right side of the road, stood a deer. At least that's what my brain wanted to call it. It had the general shape of a deer: 4 legs, a neck, a head. But the longer I looked at it, the more wrong it felt. The deer was standing completely still, facing our car, not at an angle like a normal deer would, directly facing us. And as we got closer, it turned its head to follow our movement. That's when I saw its eyes. Deer have eyes on the sides of their heads. That's how they see predators coming from all directions. But this thing's eyes were in the front, like a wolf's, like a person's. Forward-facing eyes, predator eyes. My grandfather slowed the car as we passed it, and I couldn't stop staring. The deer, or whatever it was, kept its gaze locked on us. Its head swiveled smoothly as we drove by, tracking us the entire time. "That's not a deer," my grandfather said quietly. "What is it?" I whispered. "I don't know, but deer don't watch you like that." We drove in silence for a few more seconds. Then my grandfather sped up, putting distance between us and that thing as fast as he could. I looked back through the rear window. The creature was still standing there, perfectly still now, silhouetted against the dim glow of a distant street light. Then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness,